Good afternoon, students. Now, previously we have studied about the or discussed about the asexual reproduction. Now we'll discuss about the sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is a process in which the male and female gametes are produced, and the fusion forms the zygote, and later zygote develops into a new individual. So that is called the sexual reproduction. So we define it as it involves the formation of the male and female gametes which fuse to form the zygote that develops into the embryo, finally into an individual. Now, phases of life during the sexual reproduction of an organism. There are mainly two phases of life. The first is a juvenile phase, as we say in the case of the animals, but in the case of the plants we say as vegetative phase or growth phase. Juvenile phase, the vegetative phase are considered the growth phase, where no reproductive activity takes place, simply growth takes place. So period prior to the reproductive stage of an individual is called the juvenile phase, and this is the growth phase of the organism. So in the plants there is no changes take place after the juvenile phase when it enters into the reproductive phase, but in the case of some animals there are the definite morphological changes takes place when an organism moves from the juvenile to reproductive phase. Juvenile phase is different for the different organism. For example, in the case of the wheat, it is 3 to 4 months. That is, wheat plant will grow for 3 to 4 months, and only after the 4 months it will start producing flowers and seeds. While in the case of the bamboo, the vegetative phase is 50 to 100 years. That is, and surprisingly the bamboo flowers once in its life, and after producing the seeds, flowers and seeds, it dies. So vegetative phase for the bamboo is 100 years. After 100 years it will flower. Now reproductive phase. Reproductive phase, when the organism start producing the gametes. So we define the reproductive phase is the end of the juvenile phase leads to the beginning of the reproductive phase, shown in the flowering, the case of the plants, and in other organism it will start producing the gametes, male and female gametes. One of the flower called the Strobilanthes kunthiana nilakorensi, it flowers once in 12 years, and last flowering occurred in October 2006. This plant grows in the Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, where the whole valley becomes blue in color. That's why it is called the Nilakorensi. And in September, October, the flowering takes place and beautiful scene occurs in that area. Now we talk about the birds in nature lay eggs seasonally, that is periodically, and if we look at these birds, they will lay the eggs in a particular season of the year. Say if a bird lays eggs in the March, and then again it will lay the eggs in March. But there are birds which are kept in a captivity, that is closed cage. They start laying the eggs throughout the year. Now one of the question arises, how the bird will start laying the eggs throughout the year. So like in the case of the hen, they are provided a particular temperature throughout the year so that they'll start producing the eggs. if you don't provide that particular temperature throughout the year, they will not produce the eggs. So their environmental conditions are changed in the captivity, hence they start producing the eggs, and this is a commercial exploitation of the birds. The female of the placental mammals show the cyclic changes in their ovary. The non-primate animals like the cow, sheep, rat, deer, etc., they exhibit the oestrus cycle. Primates like the monkey, apes, and human exhibit the menstrual cycle. There is a difference between the oestrus cycle and menstrual cycle. In the oestrus cycle, it exhibits a heat period in which the sex urge of the animal is maximum, that is, the copulation takes place in this heat period only, while the heat period does not occur in the case of the menstrual cycle. So they can copulate at any time. So second difference is it permits copulation during the heat period only, while in the case of the menstrual cycle, the copulation permits at any time. Third is slough of endometrium is reabsorbed. So when fertilization not takes place, you have studied the fertilization not takes place, then the endometrial lining is lost. So in the case of the oestrus cycle, this endometrial lining is reabsorbed, while in the case of the menstrual cycle, the endometrial lining is passed out with the menstrual flow. That is, so menstrual cycle, menstrual flow occurs. So in the oestrus cycle, we'll find no menstrual flow, while in the case of the menstrual cycle, menstrual flow occurs. Now, seasonal breeders are the animals which exhibit the oestrus cycle during the favorable seasons only. So when the particular season occurs, temperature, duration of day, etc., that favorable season, only then they will start producing the oestrus cycle. But continuous breeders are the animals which are reproductively active throughout the reproductive phase, that in the case of the monkey and humans, aging, or we can say in the aging, we can say in the case of the animals, but in the case of the plants we use the term senescence, we have studied in the class 11th. This is a process of progressive deterioration of the structural function of the cell, tissue, organs as it grow older is called aging. So when aging takes place, the cell, it become metabolically less active, the tissues and cell, they deteriorate, some of the parts, they may not function properly. So this leads to the aging process or growing old. So after aging or growing older, the organism has to die. So death is sure after the aging process. So that is all for today's video.